The Yamaha YZF R15, the motorcycle brand that is known by almost all serious young motorcyclists. And that's because that brand was known for its great performance, its aspirational styling, and it belonged to a brand Yamaha which had great history when it comes to racing. In fact, Yamaha sold the highest ever R15 last month and they sold about 13,000 units in a month. I mean, that's mind boggling. But what has happened over the last few years is there are a lot of R15 buyers who wanted to upgrade, who wanted motorcycle that can churn out more performance, has more aspirational value, and has better road presence. But sadly, Yamaha didn't have any motorcycles, so they had to move on to brands like KTM and Kawasaki's. But not anymore. Yamaha will soon launch the YZF R3 and the MT-03 in India early next month. And now why the MT-03? Well, because the MT-15 has been in India for many years and now MT-15 customers want to upgrade and Yamaha doesn't want to miss that opportunity. Now we are in this beautiful country of Thailand and we have ridden both the bikes for almost 700 kilometers in like 3 days, and this is what we think about these bikes. Now before we proceed, please like and share this video and don't forget to subscribe to BikeWale. We're going to start this review by first talking about the overall styling of the motorcycles. And if you know, Yamaha is one of those brands who like to go really aggressive when it comes to designing the motorcycles. You have seen with the smaller bikes all the way to the liter class, and it's the same story with the R3 and the MT-03, especially with the MT-03, because if you look at the motorcycle from the front, you will see that massive aggression on the bike. Now, if you look at the R3 closely, you'll see a lot of design elements that have been borrowed from the older Gen R1. And that's a good thing because R1 is worshipped in India, and that feeling is likely to be shared with the R3. The fascia has the sharpest design lines. Credit goes to the split headlamp and also that air intake gap. I like how the windscreen smartly merges with the front of the fairing. From the side, those large fairing panels is what gives the R3 its sports bike vibe. The rear is fairly simple looking but also exhibits some kind of aggression. The MT-03 on the other hand shouts aggression throughout. The front with its angry looking headlamp unit reminds you of an Autobot. Then the combination of muscular fuel tank with angular shrouds, split seats and blue wheels makes the MT-03 looks extremely aspirational. There's a black paint scheme available as well, but to be honest, that looks a bit dull. Now you know that both the motorcycles, the R3 and the MT-03, are built on the same platform. It's built around the same diamond frame, both are powered by the same engine. In fact, the seat height, the ground clearance of both the motorcycles are exactly the same, but there are a few changes which I'll show to you. I'm talking about the overall seating ergonomics. Now, the R3 being a sports bike, look at the seating triangle. Well, it looks still aggressive. That's because the handlebar is clip-on. It's slightly lowered so that you get the proper sports bike feeling. But unlike the R15, which gets us extremely aggressive riding stance, the R3 is much more comfortable than the R15. Now, coming to the MT-03, which is a street bike. Well, street bikes are supposed to be upright. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to have better seating ergonomics, and it is. If you look at how I'm sitting, well, I've got a wider handlebar. I can look at the road quite easily, but there is only one problem, especially someone who's on the taller side. These tank shrouds are coming out, and as a result of that, I'm not really able to hold on to the motorcycle. I mean, I still have a lot of gap near my thigh, and I've tested this motorcycle for almost 300 kilometers, and I kept getting extremely uncomfortable riding this motorcycle. But to be honest, riders who are on the shorter side, I don't think so you'll have a lot of problem with it. The MT-03 and the YZF R3 both are built around the same diamond chassis. Inside it, there is a 321cc liquid-cooled parallel twin engine. Unlike the last gen R3 that was sold in India, the new one gets 37mm KYB USD forks at the front and a monoshock at the back. The instrument console gets LCD treatment. The size of the screen is decent and the layout of the ride data is easily readable. However, other than the usual data like the odometer, trip meters, real-time fuel consumption, there aren't much details. The lights are all LED throughout on both the bikes, but the MT does get an extra projector light that makes the motorcycle look really aggressive. The other thing you should know about these bikes are the fit and finish. They are excellent and you can see some good craftsmanship throughout. Now both the bikes are powered by the same engine. I'm talking about the 321cc parallel twin liquid cooled motor, and this motor makes about 41 bhp at 10,750 rpm and 29.5 newton meters of torque, about 9,000 rpm, and the gearbox is 6 speed with slip and assist clutch. What has made this possible? Well, this engine is such a gem. I mean, I don't really remember the last time I had so much fun experiencing a motor like the one which we have on the R3 and the MT-03. The Japanese can do one thing that no other brands can, and that is getting the overall refinement of the engine right. The engines of both the bikes, the R3 and the MT-03, churns out excellent refinement and smoothness throughout the rev band. There are some minor buzz post 7000 rpm, but that can be felt only on the handlebar. The easy revving nature of the engine allows you to stay on the high revs most of the time, and that's where majority of the performance is. There is good mid-range too, but the top end keeps you engaged most of the time. However, the lack of the strong low end does take away some of the city fun. The fueling and the throttle response on both the bikes are excellent. In fact, it is possibly one of the biggest highlights of the bike. You should also know that this 321cc engine is extremely tractable. It can do 50 km per hour in 6th gear, and that means city riding should be easier on the left foot and on the left hand. But there is barely any torque at such situations, so you will need to downshift to 3rd gear for quick overtakes. The roads of the Thailand showed how amazingly the R3 handles. The bike feels light, agile, and extremely well balanced. There have been times where I was doing triple-digit speeds on those marvelous Thai roads, and the R3 made me smile all throughout it. The feel from the front is so good that you're tempted to push the bike to its limits, and those Dunlop Sport Max lets you do that. The overall balance, be in the slow speed or at the high speed, the R3 manages to churn out a confident ride. With the presence of the decently sized windscreen, you can tuck in easily and find that top speed of the bike. But slowing down from that speed is a bit bothersome. It is not the bite or the power from the calipers. Those work perfectly fine. It is a feel on the levers, which are barely present. Regarding the ride quality, well, the Thailand roads aren't really the right place to test, as the quality of the tarmac is top notch. This is something we'll know in detail when we test the bike in India. When it comes to the MT-03, well, the feeling is almost the same, but the bike feels marginally more flickable due to the lack of fairing weight up front. So every time I had to pass through some vehicles on the road, the MT-03 made that effort quite easy. The only place the MT-03 scores lesser points is on the straights. There's no windscreen, due to which you have to really fight with the wind to get that top speed. Now it's time to answer your most important question. Does it really make sense to buy the YZF R3 or the MT-03? And if the answer is yes, which one you should buy? Well, I am going to talk about the YZF R3 first because I like it more than the MT-03, and I'll tell you why. Firstly, the overall styling of this motorcycle is extremely aspirational. When you look at it from the front or from the side or from the rear, the bike looks stunning. And then you have this engine, the 321cc parallel twin motor, which is truly a gem. I mean, I've ridden this motorcycle for almost 400 kilometers and I loved every aspect of it. The power is obviously top end and some at the mid range, but what makes this motorcycle very exciting is how it handles, because we had so many corners to deal with. This motorcycle does all of it extremely well. You just think of it where you want to go and the motorcycle will take care of it. And then you also have the fueling, the throttle response, everything just combines together and makes this motorcycle such a fun bike. Now let's talk about the MT-03. Now this bike replicates almost the entire aspects of the performance and the riding traits of the R3, but it does something slightly better, and that's the handling bit. Because now this bike is 2 kilos lighter, because this one doesn't have the extra weight that comes from the fairing. And as a result of that, when you are turning this motorcycle in the corners or riding in city traffic, it's much more easier to move the bike around. But there is one thing that I kind of really didn't like, and at the start of the verdict, I said I like the R3 more. It's purely because of the seating triangle. Well, I'm not really enjoying these tank shots that popping out so much. But again, that's only for taller riders. I'm sure shorter riders will have better comfort with this. Now, there are a few major things you should know about both these bikes. Now, we are in 2023, and we have a lot of motorcycles and scooters that comes with a lot of features. These bikes don't come with a lot of it, and it should have, because it's going to come at a price point which is going to make these motorcycles quite expensive. Like, to start with, both the bikes get LCD screen. It doesn't get TFT instrument cluster. As a result of that, you don't get Bluetooth integration or smartphone connectivity. Both the bikes don't get adjustable levers, be it clutch or brake. None of these bikes have USB charging. I mean, if I want to go sports touring, if I want to do long distance on the R3, well, I need some kind of provision to charge my phone, right? But sadly, it's not available on both these bikes. One major thing is, well, the engine is brilliant. It's, like I mentioned, it's a gem of a motor, but there is barely any performance in the low revs, and that means riding both the bikes in city traffic is going to be a little pain, because you will always have to be around 4 to 5,000 RPM. You always have to play around that, because this motorcycle is designed, the engine is designed in such a way that majority of the performance comes from 4.5 all the way till 2,500 RPM. Below that, these bikes have nothing. Now, for the final time, you should buy the new Yamaha YZF R3 if you're one of those people who truly loves to appreciate the styling of the motorcycle. If you're one of those who truly believes in enjoying just the ride, being one with the motorcycle, and you love to really smile when you're riding a great motorcycle. I truly love the YZF R3 because it's a great motorcycle on the twisties, on the highways. In the city, we have not tested it fully, which we'll do it once we are back in Bombay. But as a product, the R3 is extremely aspirational. Now, coming to the MT-03, if you're one of those who are, you're going to spend most of the time in the city, and you're okay with, the lack of performance in the low revs, then the MT-03 makes sense, because the motorcycle, it has great performance, but it's all the way up top. It looks quite aggressive. It has great road presence, and I'm sure it's going to turn a lot of heads back in India. Now, you should know that both the bikes will not be assembled or made in India. They will be imported fully from Indonesia, and that means the pricing are not going to be aggressive. They're expecting a price of about 4.1 to 4.2 lakh ex-showroom for the R3, and for the MT-03 we can expect about 20,000 lesser. For that kind of price, well, as a motorcycle, they are truly impressive, but right now I won't call it value for money. So that's all we have for you right now. If you have any more questions regarding these motorcycles, you can leave your questions on the comment section, and like always, please like and share this video.